Have you ever felt, without really knowing why, that you just can't trust anyone? Like you have to always be in control? Because if you're not, something's gonna go wrong? Maybe you don't even know when that started, but sometimes it all begins with just one broken promise. This is the story of Katie, and maybe, in a lot of ways, it's yours too. Storytelling was 7 the day she waited for her dad at the school gate on a Friday. It was a big day. He had promised he'd pick her up early, just the two of them, to get ice cream before heading home. It was the first time he'd ever do that. Always busy, always late. But that day, he looked her in the eye and said, "I'm picking you up today. You deserve it. Trust me." She kept repeating that sentence the whole way to school. Trust me, trust me. At pickup time, Katie ran out with her backpack bouncing behind her. She stood close to the gate, smiling like she was waiting for the best prize ever. Kids started leaving one by one. The sky changed colors from light blue to deep orange. She watched the cars drive by, her chest starting to tighten, until she was the last one, the last in her class. Even the teacher came out and asked, "Katie, are your parents coming to get you?" Her dad never showed, never even called. It was her mom who finally showed up, late and flustered, saying, "Sorry, sweetie, your dad had a last-minute meeting, forgot to let us know. Come on, it's getting late." Katie didn't cry, but something shifted inside her that day. In the back seat of the car, she stayed quiet. She stared out the window, trying to understand why she believed so much. From that point on, she figured, a promise doesn't mean anything. Even from someone who says they love you, even from someone who looks you in the eye. That was the first wound, but it wouldn't be the last. A few months later, Katie was hiding behind the hallway door. It was nighttime. She'd woken up to the sound of her parents whispering, arguing in the living room. She didn't want to hear it, but she couldn't not hear it. "You lied to me again," her mom said. "It was nothing, just a conversation. You're overreacting." Katie held her breath. From where she was, she could see their reflection in the hallway mirror. Her dad was gesturing, her mom's eyes were full of tears. They were speaking softly, but the words hurt loud. That night, she overheard something she was never supposed to hear. "I saw the messages on your phone. Don't lie to me." Then silence. Confirmation. Storytelling, Katie tiptoed back to her room, trying not to make a sound. She curled up in bed with a tight feeling in her chest she didn't know how to name, but she knew how it felt. A kind of nausea in her stomach, a fear that made her hands go cold. If they lie to each other, who doesn't lie? If that's what love looks like, does loving always mean getting lied to? When she was 8, Katie shared a secret with her mom. She'd gotten scolded by her teacher for talking too much in class. Scared, worried she'd be misunderstood, she ran to her mom after school and said, "But I just wanted to tell what Maria told me. I didn't mean to disrupt the class." Her mom, in a sweet tone, replied, "You can tell me anything. I'm your friend, remember?" Katie believed her. She thought she was safe. 2 days later, she heard the same story being told at a family lunch, with sarcasm. "Katie got in trouble because she won't stop talking. She's turning into that nosy neighbor already." Everyone laughed, except her. It was like someone pulled her trust out with tweezers, quietly. That kind of pain hurts more than yelling, hurts more than punishment. After that, Katie started thinking twice before speaking, afraid of handing over her heart just to have it turned into a joke. When she was 9, came another cut. Her mom again, comparing. "Your cousin already knows how to ride a bike without training wheels, and you're still scared?" The tone was soft, but the wound, deep. Right in front of her grandma, her aunt, her brother. It sounded like a simple comment, but it carried a brutal judgment. You're not good enough. The other one is better. Katie swallowed hard, tried to smile, but inside what she felt was shame and anger. A quiet anger that started shaping the idea that to be loved, she had to be perfect. She had to prove herself, show, outdo, be more, be the best, always. And then came the secret, the biggest one, the one no one could know. She was 9, almost 10, when her mom pulled her aside and said, finger to her lips, "What I'm about to tell you is just between us. Not even your dad can know, okay?" Katie nodded, heart pounding. Her mom told her about a fight with Grandma, something about money and old resentments. But the pain wasn't in the story itself. It was in the weight of it. The fact that she had to hold on to something she didn't understand, but knew felt wrong. From then on, she even started doubting herself. She felt guilty for not wanting to keep the secret, scared that if she told, she'd cause a problem, ashamed that she didn't know how to handle it. Little by little, she learned a lesson no child should have to learn. You can't trust anyone, not even the people who are supposed to protect you. These things didn't happen all at once. They came slowly, like drops that fall with no rush, but one day fill the glass. And when it spills over, it's already too late. Katie started developing her own way to survive, to control, to watch before acting, to always stay on alert. The wound of betrayal was wide open, and the mask of control was starting to take shape. Katie's teenage years started with a kind of tiredness she couldn't explain. It was like she had already lived too much, even though she was still so young. She didn't laugh like the other girls at school. She watched, she analyzed, she tested. She learned way too early that trust is fragile, and that when you open up, you get hurt. It was in 8th grade when she met Mia, best friends within a week, swapping secrets, laughing during breaks, whispering in the hallway on the way to the bathroom. Katie even thought maybe she could let her guard down. She trusted her, told her she liked Jake, shared her fear of not being pretty enough, talked about feeling insecure about her body, about her mom's constant comparisons, the pain she hid behind her tough girl act. 2 days later, it all became a joke. Katie walked into school and heard, "So you like Jake?" Laughter, stares, shame. The whole class knew. Mia had told them, added a few lies here and there, turned Katie into a show. She didn't cry, didn't react. She just clenched her teeth and decided silently, never again. Never again would she share something that personal. Never again would she say what she really felt. From that moment on, she became the strong one, the one who doesn't flinch, the one who laughs before someone can laugh at her. The pain of being betrayed by someone who said, "You can trust me," only reinforced the belief that started long ago. Being vulnerable is dangerous. At home, things weren't any better. Katie lived with parents who demanded honesty, but never practiced what they preached. One night, trying to be honest, she told her mom she cheated on a test. She expected support, maybe a mature conversation. But what she got was yelling, judgment, punishment. Her mom slammed the table and said, "You embarrass me, and you have the nerve to tell me that with a straight face?" The next day, the same story was told to Grandma, to her aunt, even to her dad, who always said, "Don't drag me into this stuff." Katie felt like, once again, her private life had been turned into ammo against her. So she started shutting down, building strategies. One of them, only share what was safe. Another, predict everything before it happened, control the environment, the reactions, the feelings. Her room became her refuge, her gaze sharper by the day. Control started showing up in the smallest things. She wanted to know everything: who was talking to who was where, what people really meant. Like if she stayed one step ahead, she could avoid getting hurt again. At school, she started to stand out. She wanted to be the top student, the most praised, the one above suspicion. Deep down, it was fear. Fear of being compared, fear of being left out, fear of not being enough. She only felt safe when she was in control of everything, even if it cost her a lot. It was around that time Katie had her first boyfriend. Josh was sweet, caring. He texted her every day, wrote little love notes in her notebook. At first, she tried to relax, but the fear wouldn't let her. If he took too long to reply, her mind would start spinning. Is he talking to someone else? Is he sick of me? He's hiding something. She started checking what times he was online, started asking for explanations, started testing. If I disappear, will he come looking? If I make him jealous, will he care? The relationship didn't last long. It ended with Josh saying, "You don't trust me. It's like you're always watching me." Katie walked away saying he was weak, but she cried all night because deep down, she knew. She knew the problem wasn't him. It was that old hole, the one that kept whispering, "You're always gonna get played." At home, her parents were stuck in an endless loop of highs and lows, fights and makeups, lies barely covered up, constant contradictions. Her mom said she wanted peace, but screamed over nothing. Her dad preached unity, but disappeared on the weekends. Katie felt more and more alone. She learned that if she wanted to survive, she had to be faster, sharper, had to read people's intentions before they turned into threats. That's when she started seeing the world like an arena, relationships as a competition, people as threats. Being close to someone meant being strong. Showing weakness was asking to get hurt. Even with friends, Katie competed, trying to prove she was the most trustworthy, the most mature, the most independent. She had to prove, always, that no one fooled her, and no one ever would. But inside, it was a minefield. Any mistake from someone else felt like betrayal, a dry reply, a forgotten invite, a comment taken the wrong way. And the reaction was instant. She'd shut down, pull away, go silent. It hurt so much that the only way to deal with it was to pretend it didn't. But it did. Teenage years were when the mask of control became armor. Katie became the girl no one messes with, the one who's got it all together, the one who never breaks. But inside, that same little girl was still standing at the school gate, still hoping someone would show up to take her home. Childhood left scars. Teenage years built armor. And in adulthood, all of it turned into patterns. Patterns that hurt, that sabotage. But they felt so normal, it took Katie a long time to realize she was actually at war with the world and with herself. Katie was 29 when she started noticing how exhausted she was. Not physically, emotionally. Tired of watching everything, of predicting everything, of keeping all the pieces in place like the world was a board game and she was the only one keeping it from falling apart. At work, she was the perfect professional. Responsible, fast, reliable, but she never delegated, never tolerated mistakes. Any delay, any small slip-up from a coworker triggered stress. If I don't do it, it's gonna go wrong. That's what she kept telling herself. But what she didn't say out loud was that when things did go wrong, it hurt way more than it should have. Because for Katie, when someone messed up, it felt personal. It felt like betrayal. In her love life, it was the same story. By 30, she was in her third serious relationship. Chris was calm, supportive, even affectionate, but she couldn't relax. She knew his phone password. She knew where he was, with who, for how long. She studied his gestures, analyzed his tone of voice, made assumptions based on gut feelings, but deep down, it was fear. It wasn't normal jealousy. It was panic, a kind of quiet anxiety that kept whispering, sooner or later, he's gonna do something. They all do. So she tested him, played emotional games, disappeared for hours to see if he'd miss her, dropped hints to gauge his reaction, created situations just to make sure he still cared, as if love only counted if it was constantly proven. But all that control was suffocating, and slowly it pushed him away. When Chris said, "I care about you, but I can't live walking on eggshells," Katie froze. She thought about clapping back, thought about arguing, but for the first time, she felt afraid of losing someone who was actually solid. And still, she couldn't change. After the breakup, she told a friend, "No one ever stays, but then again, no one's ever really honest." It was easier to believe that than to face the real question, what if the problem is the way I learned to protect myself? In therapy, which she started after a panic attack at work, Katie slowly began to open up. She barely talked, but she noticed everything, even tested the therapist. She repeated the same behavior without realizing it. Distrust before trust, control before connection. But little by little, she started seeing the signs. There were so many. She realized how much she demanded perfection from others, but didn't let herself make mistakes. How she cut people off for small things, but secretly missed them. How she gave so much, yet never showed real vulnerability. Because deep down, she was sure that if she showed weakness, she'd be left. At work, she was constantly praised. But if someone on her team forgot something, missed a task, didn't answer an email, she'd snap. She felt betrayed. Cold or sarcastic, she'd say, "Don't worry, I'll handle it, like always." Then later, alone at home, she'd feel that old familiar ache of being abandoned. It hit her during a meeting. A new coworker made a simple mistake. Katie corrected her in front of everyone, harsh tone, no filter. The woman was clearly embarrassed. At the time, Katie didn't even notice. She only realized later when another colleague said, "She just wanted help. You were kinda harsh." She went home with a lump in her throat and remembered that time at 8 years old when her mom used her secret as a joke at lunch. It hurt, and for the first time, she admitted to herself, "I'm doing the exact same thing that once hurt me." That was her first turning point. Small, almost invisible, but real. From that day on, Katie started looking at herself with more honesty, with less guilt and more curiosity. It helped that she'd found in her therapist someone who didn't judge, someone who never used her words against her, someone who didn't promise magic fixes but showed up, fully present. And then she started trying something different. Instead of always expecting the worst, she began to ask herself, what if I could expect the best? It wasn't easy. Her first instinct was still control. But she started identifying, naming, and breathing through her reactions. In a new relationship with Michael, she decided to do things differently. Not perfectly, just differently. When she felt jealous, she said it. When she felt scared, she wrote it down before bringing it up. When she felt like testing him, she paused, took a breath, and asked herself, am I reacting to Michael or to my past? Little by little, she started to feel freer. Not because she had beaten the pain, but because she stopped fighting it alone. She began to accept that control wasn't power, it was a cage. And that trust doesn't come from the outside, it starts within. Katie is still the same at her core, observant, intense, thoughtful, but now she knows. Not every mistake is betrayal. Not every flaw means abandonment. Not every story has to repeat the last one. She learned the hard way that real trust isn't the same as blind surrender, and that overprotecting yourself is another way of getting hurt. Now, Katie doesn't need to control everything because she learned to control what actually matters: her own reactions, her own choices, her own path to healing. Getting this far in itself is an act of courage. If you made it to the end of this video, it's probably because some part of you saw yourself in Katie. Maybe in how she learned to stay quiet, or in the massive effort she made to predict everything, control everyone, and avoid being caught off guard again. Or maybe you realized you've also confused strength with vigilance and trust with disguised control. The most powerful part of this story isn't what Katie went through. It's what she began to realize, that we aren't defined by the wounds that hurt us, but by the choices we make after we see them. And sometimes it all starts with discomfort, a quiet tension that weighs on you. In the way you snap at someone for being late, as if it's abandonment. In the way you get irritated over a forgotten detail, as if it's disrespect. Or in the way you give and give and give, but always feel like you're bracing yourself, waiting for the moment someone will let you down. The wound of betrayal leaves invisible marks, but they're real. And a lot of people who carry that wound get used to covering it all up with control. Controlling the schedule, the timing, the tone of every conversation, even their own feelings. But deep down, what they're trying to avoid is that same old pain of trusting and being left behind. The thing is, controlling everything doesn't stop things from falling apart. And if you're always trying to anticipate other people's mistakes, you'll never feel the relief of being embraced when you're the one who messes up. Learning to trust again isn't about being naive. It's about giving yourself the chance to build new reference points with time, presence, and truth. It's accepting that safety doesn't come from never getting hurt again, but from knowing that if it happens, you now have the inner strength to deal with it. Katie only started to change when she stopped fighting her past and started taking care of her present. She learned that showing vulnerability isn't weakness, it's emotional maturity. It's knowing there's no intimacy without risk, but there's an even bigger risk in living relationships where you're never fully there. In real life, this kind of transformation doesn't happen overnight. You don't just wake up one day fearless, confident, and free. You start by doubting a little less, then by taking a breath before snapping, then by asking for help where you used to isolate. And one day, without even realizing it, you catch yourself reacting differently. And that's healing. If this video touched something deep in you, if it helped you put a name to an old pain, like it, drop a comment below, and share what it made you feel. Send it to someone who might need to hear this too. You never know, one story might be the turning point in someone's life. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because there's a lot more content here to help you rebuild your story from the inside out, step by step. No fake formulas, just the truth you deserve. And now, before you go, take a deep breath and watch the next video that's about to pop up. It goes even deeper into this emotional healing journey. It's one more step on the path you've already started now. Remember, you're not alone, and what hurt you doesn't define who you can become. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.